Welcome back to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast. Today we've got a very special edition of the series. We're at a National Cybersecurity show and we're joined by Martin. Martin, can you give us a high level overview of who you are and what's brought you here today?
In no more than 2 days. My name is Martin Smith. As you can see, I'm very old. I've been in the security industry now for 50 years. I started in 1976 and I got into cybersecurity in 1981 when I was still in the Royal Air Force. 1981, that was in the very, very earliest days. None of us knew what was going on. It was a fantastic time. I was in the Air Force and I developed the first training courses for the military. We were making it up as we went along. I remember organising a lunch at the officers' mess at RAF Brampton near Huntingdon, and I gathered together all the people in the cybersecurity industry in the UK that I knew were doing anything interesting, and there were 19 of us. That was it. And 4 of them went on to write the British Standard 7799, which then became the ISO 27001. So these were the really, really early days. I wrote a book in 1985 called Common Sense Computer Security from that work in the military. I got MOD blessing and it was published by IBM and McGraw-Hill. And you know, that book still applies. Okay, there was no internet, there was no networking, but the basic principles are the same. I come from a security background. I was in the RAF security world, physical security, investigations, nuclear security, good training in all aspects of security, and then moved into the cyber world. So the basic principles of security apply to the cyber. There is no such thing as cyber crime, it's just new ways of doing old crime. So we moved that forward to 1990s and I left the Air Force and I worked in the civilian environment for a while. I'm a behavioral psychologist by training and a communicator by nature. You will stop me when I'm boring you, won't you?
No, I wouldn't.
So I've always focused on the human level of cybersecurity, and so I started my own business in 1997 called the Security Company, because in those days you could call yourself what it said on the tin. So we were the Security Company, and we looked at the security awareness part of the story, the human layer.
Why did you focus on that first of all, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, no one else was looking at it. This industry was run by techies for techies. And yet, even today, the vast majority of the threat surface is at the human layer.
It is. And that
communication
is a challenge for people, especially those techies, these brilliant techies. I think they bang their head against the brick wall the majority of the time because they're not coming down to that human or commercial level.
Well, that's where I set my own business up. And we ran that for a number of years, trying to introduce security awareness to organizations who all wanted to spend their money on more and more black boxes. So in 2004, I started the Security Awareness Special Interest Group, which is, that's SASIG. You, but where the name SASIG comes from, SASIG, the SASIG, and everybody now knows the SASIG as a safe world for the cybersecurity professionals, end users to mix. It was a sales-free zone, a Ciso safe zone. And it's just grown and got a life of its own, and we're now the SASIG, 12,500 members, and I'm still here hanging in.
That's fantastic, and I know in the coming weeks, 1,000th webinar, 22nd year in business.
I know.
How does that make you feel?
I'm very proud of it. If I could explain how webinars came about, we just grew. We had a small number of, we call them supporters, which are sponsors, and they're the people that provide us money, but it's a sales-free environment. So the sponsors aren't allowed to sell to the community.
Yeah.
And that's difficult sell, but they don't want to sell. They want to be part of the community and learn from them and build and all that. So when lockdown came, we were doing in-person events and the sponsors were saying, well, can we be part of this? And I would say, well, no, because you're not a sponsor. You should have become a sponsor. But they had no route to the community. So we decided we start doing webinars. And Danny King, my managing director, said, well, yes, when? I said, no, you misunderstand me, every day. And we did a webinar every day for 2 years during lockdown. And we went from 2,000 members to 9,500 members in that time. And we never looked back. So we came out of lockdown, went back into the real world. But there was such a demand for our webinars. So in the next month or two, we're coming up to our 1,000th webinar. unbelievable.
It's
And
insane.
It's
consistency
insane.
as well, and I do commend you and the team for that. I've been following your work for many years.
Well, you're
now.
very kind.
I think it's one of the most inspiring journeys that you've gone on.
It's also
you know?
one of the best kept secrets of the cybersecurity world. Our webinars happen twice a week now, sometimes 3 times a week, always at 11 o'clock, always free to attend. Anybody can come along to them. They're amazing, and they talk about every cyber topic you can think about, including many of the softer layers. We talk about awareness, but we talk about diversity, we talk about women in security, we talk about neurodiversity in security, we talk about mental health and welfare, careers, anything we can talk about that affect the cybersecurity professional. It's not just about product. And this industry was always run by techies for techies, and it is so much more than that now. We now like to include much more of the C-suite. We extend into the CIO world, into the CTO world, the CRO world, the CMO world.
Why is that important that our
Well,
community
because this is
understand
not
that?
a technical issue.
Yeah.
This is a business issue. I have to say that, I mean, I'm old and I'm tired, but I'm still enthusiastic because 30, 40, 50 years into this business, I can now see things that I saw 50 years coming to pass. People are not seeing security as a stopper in all aspects, not just cyber, but physical and all of it. They see it as an enabler now, and it is about the business being resilient. And that's where I'm moving the whole conversation to. This is not about security. Cybersecurity is a small part of security, which is a small part of protection. But there's threat intelligence, seeing the danger as it's coming towards you. There's detection. There's recovery. There's all the phases. There's communication. One of the big things when a company gets hit by a breach, and it will happen to you, is how do you deal with your customers? How do you deal with your clients? Supply chain, how do you deal with your suppliers? Are they secure? If I'm coming at you, I'm not coming through you, the big boy, I'm going to come in you through the layers underneath you, the smaller vendors, the ones that don't have the protection that the big players have. So it is such a complex jigsaw puzzle.
It is. I mean,
Which
you can't have all the answers. You need to rely on your community for
And
it.
so
Yeah.
the business leaders need to understand the importance of this as a business enabler. This is not about us saying you can't do something. This is about us saying, how can we make you do what we do without it bringing us down? And there are so many examples now of it, organizations that have been hit that either deal with it and recover or don't deal with it, and they don't die, but they never recover. Now that's my story.
It's a fascinating one. I'd love to dig into that in a bit more detail in a future episode. But
If you wish to, it'd be my pleasure.
That'd be
But
brilliant.
I did say before we came live, you must stop me when I bore you, because I can bore for the world on this topic.
Let's look at current events without naming any organisations. Has there been a cyber F-up that's really caught your attention in most recent times?
I'm very reluctant to name names for 2 reasons. Firstly, they will be a member.
Yeah. I don't believe in blame culture either, by the way. You know.
Let me come back to that. And secondly, because we can learn so much from when something goes wrong, and that any organization that doesn't think they needs their heads examining. There, but for the grace of every man's God, go the rest of us.
Yeah.
Now, the blame culture, I started my working life as a pilot in the Royal Air Force. So flying's in my blood. And so much of what we do, I try and apply to the flying world. The flying world operates what we call the just culture, which is about learning from what makes mistakes. People need to be able to say to each other, where have I gone wrong? Somebody needs to not be as scared of putting their hands up, but putting their hands up and say, this happened to me. Can you tell me what we have to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? So we operate, well, I think we should operate the just culture, which is that when something goes wrong, people should put their hands up and say, this has gone wrong. And everybody should learn from it. And therefore, that doesn't mean to say that we should have a go at people that have suffered a breach. We should celebrate them and include them. Now, that said, some deal with breaches better than others. And some organizations have not dealt with it well, and others have. When I look at them clinically, a lot of what went wrong was not the technology level, and it wasn't necessarily the human level, but it was very much the communications level, internally and then out to the world. It doesn't matter how well you do if it looks like you're not doing well, and it doesn't matter how much you do if you don't bring everybody along with you. Customers, suppliers, vendors, peers, regulators, the ICO. There are so many moving parts to a breach that it has to be done in the context of what's going on around you. Yeah, there's some real bad examples. I mean, they're all bad examples, but there's been some bad examples of how people recovered and some good examples of how people recovered. I think it's really important that when something does go wrong, that organizations and the people within those organizations feel empowered to put their hands up and say, guys, this has happened, help, I need help, over here.
How do you do that as a leader? How do you encourage that honesty, transparency within your team? Is it showing vulnerability?
It's all about trust. It's trust at all levels. Now, I come from the old school of leadership, which is that you delegate, you empower people, you trust people, you trust members of your team to do their job. You don't micromanage. And when they do make mistakes, you support them. It's old school. As an industry, the cybersecurity industry has historically not been strong on communication skills, shall I say, leadership skills, management skills. Many of the people in the past, not now, but in the past that had rose up through the ranks were not because they had those qualities, but because they had good technical qualities.
Yeah.
The CISO role is no longer a technical role. It's a business role that requires leadership skills, management skills, communication skills. And too few of our senior people had those skills in the past. I'm being very careful because we have a fine generation of CISOs coming through now who are not only technically skilled, but also have those wider managerial communication skills. And those are the ones. People say to me, what have I got to do to get promoted to CISO? Don't worry about the technology. There'll be lots of people in your team that know the technology. Develop your personal skills, your leadership skills, your communication skills, your writing skills, your analytic skills. Those are where the CISOs of the future will emerge from the pack.
That's some brilliant points. And do you think the career progression route for CISOs evolved? Yeah, I've seen some brilliant individuals now transition into Chief Trust Officer, for instance, within organizations. What are your thoughts around that?
I think we need to be careful that we don't isolate ourselves from the business, or let me put the other way out, we need to take care to integrate ourselves with the business. Oh, doesn't senior management know how important cyber is? Yes, they do.
They should know by now.
They should know by now. This is a really important point. If your board is not supporting you because they don't understand what the problem is and what they need to do, that's not their fault. People at board level are really, really bright. That's why they're at board level. If they don't understand something, if they don't understand the cyber risk and what they need to do about it, that's not because they're not bright, it's because we haven't explained it properly to them.
Yeah.
And that's our fault. Oh, the board don't listen to me. They would if you explain things clearly enough.
Yeah, it needs to be in a context that resonates, and it's hard to do, especially if you've got, I don't know, half a dozen board members, for instance, from different walks of life, different cultural backgrounds, different expertise. You need to find someone that sits in that middle ground to align with them. Or spend time with them
and also, the board are looking at all sorts of risks. Yes, cyber risk is important, but so are many other risks. And risk is essential to business. So I don't want the CISO to go up and shout, we got a risk over here. I want the CISO to go up and shout, we have a risk over there. This is the nature of it. This is what we're doing to mitigate it. And this is the gap. Do you accept it or not? People think they should eliminate risk. No.
It's accepting it, working around it. You know.
And the key to accepting risk is that you've explained it properly, and management, not management, leadership, the board, are the ones empowered to accept that risk and move forward.
It's brilliant. And look, obviously you lead a community. It's a thriving one. Some amazing people come up to us today, popping in to see you and the team, and I know everyone was enjoying the talk this morning. But what are some of the key frustrations and challenges that you're seeing or hearing from security leaders right now? And what more can we do as an industry to overcome some of those challenges?
One of the big themes that we've been talking about here today, and one of the things that I am really pushing hard, is the barrier between the vendor community, which will be in your community, and the user community, which is the CISO community. Now, I am a believer in courtesy. I think courtesy in business is absolutely fundamental. And I see it breaking down in society, and I see it breaking down in our industry. And it's most clearly visible in the huge barrier between the vendor community and the user community. Now, let me explain. This is really important. Vendors need customers. They've got product and service that they need to sell. That's what they're there for. CISO community need to protect their businesses, and to do that, they need those products and services. So there's a partnership to be had here. Both sides need each other. Both sides want each other. So why is it that there is a seeming wall between the two? And it's something I've seen grow. The CISO community defend themselves against the aggressive, domineering, abrasive CISO vendor community. We're sick and tired of cold emails. We're sick and tired of being cold called all the time. Well, that's because neither side really understands. We believe that, well, I know that CISOs buy from people they know and trust.
Yeah.
The vendors say to me, how do I get known and trusted? It takes time. There's a wonderful story about the American tourist visits the Tower of London, and he sees the old groundsman and he says, gee, buddy, how do you get such a beautiful lawn? How is your grass so green? And the lawnsman says, it's not difficult, sir. All you do is you cut it, you roll it, and you water it every day.
Consistency, showing up every day.
For 800 years. And that's the point. We've been doing this for 22. The SASIG community trusts each other. It's a family. We have a small number of vendors inside the community who are only admitted once they acknowledge that they are there on trust. They don't try and sell to the community. They are part of the community. They talk and learn from the community. And so we have a very small, limited number of what we call supporters, vendors. We're looking for good ones all the time, so if anybody's interested, let me know. But not everybody can become a supporter, because I need to be content they understand that there is this barrier between vendors and users, which it is up to both sides to break that barrier down. And that comes from trust, it comes from courtesy, it comes from both sides respecting each other's reasons for being there. Vendors need to know, if no means no from a user, fine, move on. We'll stay, we'll carry on talking, and when you have a need, you'll come to talk to us. And users need to understand that vendors have got a job to do.
Yeah.
And yes, they have a service, and when you need that service, you need to approach them seriously and have a serious conversation, grown-up conversation. But CISOs say to me, oh, there's some real arsehole vendors out. Sorry, I said it out loud. Is that okay? There's some real arsehole vendors out there. And I hear vendors say to me, there's some real arsehole CISOs out there. You can cut this bit out if you want.
No, of course not.
But the reality is that some vendors behave like the enemy and they get treated like the enemy. Some CISOs don't treat vendors with the respect that they deserve. And so therefore it's a thing that both sides need to work out. The SASIG community is a really good place for that to happen once a vendor understands, and a user recognizes that barrier and needs to break it down. You asked me what my big beef was, that was it. Well, there are two others.
Go on.
The first is supply chain. Any organization is as weak as its weakest link, which is going to be your supply network, not chain, because it's not a chain, it goes in all directions. Retail is part of a supply chain.
Are you talking about the third or fourth, fifth, sixth, and
20th.
so on? 20th. That's great, I love that.
All right. Now, you are a big organization with a long tail of suppliers. They will let you down. There where I'm going to come in. I'm not going to attack you at the top. I'm going to attack low down and come up through it. We see it time and again. But you've got the resource, the knowledge. Help your vendors. Help your suppliers to be more secure. Share your knowledge, include them in your efforts. I know it's hard with your resource to look after yourself, but include your suppliers, certainly your top level suppliers. Say, how can we help you be more secure? Because they won't have your resource. So, break down the barrier between users and vendors. Users, look after your vendors. And then the third thing we already touched on is make sure that all of your workforce, I don't know how you put it, everybody within your organization is aware of the danger and helping you. I have another one. How many people are there in your security team? Oh, I got 3, 4, I got 7. Do I include my SOC team? That makes it 14. Okay, 22 people on my security team. Congratulations. What would you do if I could give you a security team of 100? Oh, yes, please. Wow. What if I could give you a security team of 1,000? Oh, wow. How many people are in your organization? There's 8,000 in my workforce. You have a team potentially of 8,000. If every one of your workforce is aware of the dangers, looking out for them, and reporting them back to the security team when there's a problem, you have got a security workforce, a security team as large as your workforce. Yeah. Wow.
It's culture, it's a culture piece.
Culture
isn't it?
is
if
the
you've got
culture
those
piece.
Champions, strategic position around businesses and departments. You don't necessarily need everyone, but you need people on the ground showing those positive cyber hygiene practices, for instance.
Break down the barrier between the vendor and the user. Remember, you are equals, each has got a part to play. Take those vendors and help them be secure. And then work on your culture and make sure that everybody within your organization is working with you to protect it. You do that, you don't need to spend a fortune. People say, well, where should I spend my money? Well, if you think that 90% of an organization's budget is spent on stuff, technology, but 90% of the attacks come through the human layer, that makes no sense at all. You spend 90% of your money over there on technology, 90% of the trouble's coming over from there, where you're spending a fraction of your time and effort working on your culture and your human layer. I hope this all makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. It takes me back. There was something I watched a few years back. They were talking about planes during World War II, and they were putting armor on the wings. And ultimately someone come in and said, well, actually, it's not the wings that are bringing down the plane with the holes in, it's the pilots getting shot. And once someone has took a step back and assessed that,
well, do you know
and
how that happened? Allow me to just explain, right? So they examined all the aeroplanes that landed, and they realized that all the holes were in the wings. Yeah. So clearly that was the most vulnerable place. What they weren't able to measure was all the aeroplanes that didn't get back.
Yeah.
And they had all the bullets in the cockpit or in the engines. So when you do an assessment, you need to look at where you think the real dangers are, not where the evidence is pointing you. So that's a really good example, because the ones that got back were the ones where you didn't need to worry about them. They got back. That's a great example. It really is.
What you were saying reminded me of that. And look, moving forward, what's next? Beyond obviously the final webinar, you're obviously approaching the 22nd year now.
Yeah, we were acquired by 19 Group 2 years ago, and they're the organisation that run this. And we were fortunate enough to be able to get our independence back during the summer, because the SASIG is a community. It's about the people in it. It's by the community, for the community, and so we wanted to return it to its roots. I want this to become the place where all of those working on security, so that's users, law enforcement, academia, government, can come together, and where the vendors can meet them on open ground and talk sensibly. And I just want to keep that going without it being, it's not a commercial, SASIG is not about making money. It's not an events organization as such. I do it now as a hobby. I should have retired twice. I'm very old. I will continue doing this as long as my community of 12,500 people want me to continue. And that's because I know that we're doing something really useful, is providing the users with an environment where they can talk amongst themselves, share their troubles, share their solutions, and where the good vendors, the honest vendors, the ones that understand what they have to do to help the business, can meet those users. So if anybody wants to join the SASIG community who are vendors or suppliers, then do get in touch with me. We are very careful that only those vendors that get that.
Yeah.
We don't look for coin-operated vendors. This is not a sales channel. And we know that if you approach the SASIG community with a sales hat on, they can get that anywhere. If you come to the SASIG community with we want to learn from you, we want to talk to you, we want to help you hat on, they will embrace you with open arms. How are we doing? Because I've been doing an awful lot of talking. I hope it all comes out all right. I hope it makes sense.
It's a really interesting discussion, and as I mentioned, I want to highlight what you guys and girls are doing over at SASIG. Hopefully we can collaborate in the future on a few things, of course, as well.
One of the things that we're very proud of, and it happens about once a month, it's what we call our Chief's Brief. And because I'm who I am, and I've known everybody, I watched the whole industry grow up, there's no hiding place. I get the most senior people of our industry to come along and just talk like this for an hour. And some of them, we're 20 or 30, 40 of them over the last 5 years. The most revealing conversations you could imagine, the honest conversations amongst friends. And some of those, I think, would turn nicely into a podcast, and we're talking about whether you could bring those to the wider community for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think those insights, those honest conversations will certainly be a wealth of resource for those that are looking to move up in the ranks and understand.
Amazing stuff. Amazing, honest, brutal sometimes conversations, tearful conversations. Great big grown-up CISOs, hard business leaders in tears.
We're all humans.
Because underneath it all, we've all got a job to do. If we go back to where we all started in this conversation, and you would say to me one thing that I really want to achieve with the SASIG, it is genuinely to break down that barrier between the vendors and the users. Because it's such an important relationship. Organizations can't protect themselves without products and services. And those products and services, especially the innovative companies that don't have vast amounts of money to sell, and they can't get the attention that the big players do.
We've got an opportunity to build trust and
I want them to have a platform to bring their new ideas to the community.
It's a mission that certainly resonates with me. In terms of diverse and inclusive knowledge sharing, you're a beacon of that. And any final thoughts for CISOs, vendors? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. It's a hell of a job. It's a hell of a job. As a CISO, you can't control events. You can't prevent shit happening. It will. You need to be prepared to respond in a way that allows your organization to continue performing. That is not the same as preventing shit from happening. It probably will. It's not about just physically and digitally protecting data. That's only part of the story. It's about the bigger picture of threat intelligence all the way through to response and recovery, and being seen by the business as part of that enabling community, the C-suite. It's not a job I would like to do anymore because I'm just too old. It's not a job that I would be qualified to do anymore because it's changed since my CISO days 30 years ago.
I think you're doing a more important job. You're bringing organizations and individuals together.
I think that's where I see my role. During lockdown, we did a webinar every day, 11 o'clock every day, and we labeled it as the virtual water cooler. And my role was every day to be there for everyone to come together. And I don't know whether I mentioned it earlier, we went from 3,000 to 9,500 members over that 2 years. Because people needed that place to come together. So we are still the virtual water cooler with our webinars, but we're also the physical water cooler now with our twice monthly in-person events, and all sorts of people come to us. Thousands of people over the year come and join us at one of those events. They're all free, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we would certainly encourage our audience and community to check that out. We're going to leave some links within the show notes and description. Hopefully we see you at some future SASIG events. Martin, really appreciate it. Hope to have you back again in the future.
I haven't rabbited on too long. I did ask
really
you.
enjoyed it.
You had to remind me when I was boring you. I hope I haven't done that.
No, you haven't. It's been a fantastic conversation.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you.